They're too big. There's no way we can do it. Well, they just went through a big old ocean, really. They just walked through it where the water was on both sides of them. And they walked through it on dry land. 1 million people walked through it. And when they got on the other side, they turned around and they watched Pharaoh's army come into the sea. And what happened? The waters fell in on them, drowned every one of them. But they can't go into the promised land and take all of this after God had promised it to them. All of this food, and I mean, the best of the best of the best. So what did they do? They ate the same piece of bread for 40 years. Why? Because they disobeyed God. I thought about those 10 spies on that 40th year out there eating that manna in the morning, thinking, boy, you remember them grapes? Remember how big that grape was? We could have been having grape jelly today if we wanted it. We could have been drinking grape juice today. Here we are eating this manna for the 40th year. If we'd have just went in there, we could have took them. I mean, it would have been worth dying if we wouldn't have to eat this manna for 40 years. It'd been worth dying in there. Listen, it's worth serving God, even if you have to give your life. That's what those Hebrew boys said when they went into that fire. It's just worth dying for God. Well, we'll just go on in there, and if the Lord wants to kill us, okay, and if he don't, okay. And what happened? The greatest miracle that probably we read in the Bible is about them 3 Hebrew boys that was thrown in the fire. And the king said, did we not throw 3 in? He said, but I see 4. And that 4th one looked like the Son of God. You see, they had God on their side. So there was no use to being discouraged. Oh, it might look like it's going bad. It might look like you're in the valley, like Donna sang about. You might be in the valley, but listen, God's there. You don't have to fear because God's there. You don't have to be discouraged. You know, one of the things that hurts a preacher more than anything, discouragement. I mean, a preacher could stand up here and see every seat down there full. You could see people get saved every month and be discouraged. You're going to have the best singing. You're going to have the best musicians. You're going to have the best of the best. Just stand right here and be discouraged. Because even when you're up on the mountain, you can get discouraged. When things are seen to be going great, you can be discouraged. Because there's people that should be helping you that's doing nothing but discouraging you. You'll find as you read on in this chapter that, well, not this chapter, but further on in the book of Nehemiah, that there was a lot of intermarriage going on. And some of the marriages that took place they were telling Sanballat, Tobiah, about what was fixing to happen. They were letting them in on the plans that was taking place. They were undermining their home people. They were undermining the Israelites. They were cutting them down. And for every step forward, they fell 3 steps back. In the time when things seemed like they was going good, things began to happen and then began to fall back. Sometimes when you're working for God and seems like everything's going great, there'll be somebody. There'll be somebody that should be helping you will cut you down, and it'll break your heart. But don't think that God's left you. He's still with you. There'll be times that you can't feel him. You can't find him. And you can't figure him out. But I want you to know he's still there. He's still there. He hadn't left you. He's still there. And he's still got to work for you. You might not be high up on the mountain. You might be down in the valley, but he's still there. You may have lost your best friend. You may have lost even the pastor that you had. But he's still there. God didn't move. God didn't move away from these people. God was still there. All they had to do was ask, and God would help them. God's going to help them build that wall, no matter what was going on. Hey, these guys were surrounded by 4 armies. All the way around them was surrounded. But guess what? God was there. That's all that made any difference. God was there to help them out. Discouragement was coming upon them. Hey, discouragement was there. Just like those 10 spies had discouraged them before, discouragement was coming on them. But oh, praise God, Nehemiah said, we're going to build a wall. God told me to build a wall. We're going to build a wall. Hey, we need some people that said, God told me to do this. John said this morning, God had been speaking to him. And when I asked him, he said, yeah, I'll do it. When the preacher asked me to preach, I said, yeah, I'll do it. You know what? There's going to come a time that you got to quit asking. And you'll miss out. You'll miss out on what God will have you to do. On the last thing, I know that time's running short. The last thing is fear. Fear. Being afraid. I would do that, but I'm afraid. I'm afraid about what people would say. I'm afraid that I'll fail. How many times have I failed not going by the bulletin? Once. Have I ever gone by the bulletin? Nope. See, for over 20 years, I never had to go by the bulletin. And just like giving Miss Arnold that outline, I never had to give people outlines.